Thank you. Everyone can be seated. So thank you for joining us again today. Before we get started, each of you can raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Have each of you been able to follow my instructions over the course of the evening, not to talk to anybody about this case or about the people, parties involved in the case, not doing your own research, including going online to look anything up, and including reading any of the news accounts of this trial? Yes. Each of you. Thank you. All right, so when we left off yesterday, we were on the plaintiff's case. We're still going to be on the plaintiff's case. So, who would you like to talk to this morning?
We're going to put the video deposition testimony of A.J. Editorial. It's actually testimony for two different depositions, so at some points they were jurors who want to throw the prisoners off.
Thank you. So, we, the jury, please consider these excerpts from Mr. Valerio's video deposition that was sworn and taken prior to trial. Mr. Cook, you know which dates?
It was on September 30th of 2013. And I don't have exactly 15, but it was 2015. It's the second deposition I'll do. April 2015.
All right, so please consider these depositions as other things that you would consider in this case. Thank you very much.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the following testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Good morning, Mr. Valerio. Can you state your full name for the record, please? Albert James Valerio. They may have told you something about the process that we're about to embark upon, but since it's been a while since you've had that position taken, let me just go over a few preliminaries. The oath that you were just administered by the court reporter is the same oath that you would be given in a court of law. You understand that? Yes. And the penalties of perjury that apply in a court of law are exactly the same penalties of perjury that apply here today, even though we're in the relatively informal surroundings of a windowless conference room. Right? You understand that? And what did you do as a staff writer at Deadspin?
I did various stories about sports and sports culture.
And Deadspin is one of the Gawker media websites, right?
Yes.
And how long did you stay as a staff writer?
I believe 6 or 7 months.
And then what was your next job?
Editor-in-chief of Deadspin.
And when did you assume that role?
And June of 2008, I believe.
Listen, when you were a staff writer at Deadspin, did you receive compensation based upon page views?
Yes.
And you did as well when you were editor-in-chief, correct?
At that time, I don't recall.
All right, and how long did you remain as editor-in-chief at Deadspin?
Until November of 2011.
Okay, well, who, as the editor at Deadspin, to whom did you report, if not to Mr. Robichaud?
Nick.
Nick Denton?
Yes, Nick Denton.
And is that your understanding with respect to all of the other editors of the various sites?
That is my understanding.
And then you left Deadspin in November of 2011?
Yes.
Why?
I was about to take another job with another publication.
And what was that?
Animal New York. And, Animal NY. I never took that job.
Oh, okay. Why not?
Because Nick Denton asked me if I wanted to be editor of Gawker.com.
And when did he do that?
November 2011.
In the year 2012, were you at that time the editor-in-chief of Gawker.com?
Yes.
Okay, and when did you take on the title of editor-in-chief of Gawker.com?
In January 2012?
Okay. And when did you cease being editor-in-chief of Gawker.com?
February 2013.
Can you tell me what were your responsibilities as editor?
Overseeing staff, hiring, firing, story planning, interacting with the other parts of the company, writing, editing.
Okay. Editor at Gawker.com do not only edit and write as well, correct?
Yes.
So, okay, well, can you, let me ask you this. How long did you serve as editor of Gawker.com?
Up until January 2013.
Let me ask you first, Mr. Lawyer, this is a email string between you and Mr. Denton, it would appear. Do you recall seeing this email chain before today?
Yes, I do recall seeing this.
Was the decision to leave Gawker Media in 2013 entirely your own, or was it something that Mr. Denton asked you to do?
That was entirely my own.
Directing your attention to the second paragraph of the same email from Mr. Denton. He says, I really don't fully understand. AJ breaks all the rules of orthodox management. Do you know what rules of orthodox management Mr. Denton was referring to?
No.
Do you know if he regarded the breaking of the usual rules of orthodox management as a positive thing or a negative thing?
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I would assume that yes, he enjoyed me breaking the rules of orthodox management.
And does orthodox management include the rules of mainstream journalism?
I believe Nick's publicly stated about his belief about mainstream journalism and some of the things he does not enjoy about it.
He enjoys being a rule breaker.
I think you can probably safely say that, yes.
Do you believe you and he have a difference of opinion about whether or not it's appropriate to publish uncorroborated rumors?
I believe that most of the time that I worked with Nick, which was, was 5 years, that we were most of the time in line with what we thought was publishable and what we didn't think was worth publishing.
Can you identify any instances where you were not aligned?
One in particular was an email exchange that he had with the NBC anchor Brian Williams, which he had forwarded to me, and as I published that, he was a little upset with me for publishing it.
This was a private email that he received from Mr. Williams, correct?
Yes, that's what he said after the fact, but at the same time, Nick also knows what both he and I kind of consider private as much as not so much. There's not a lot that we consider private, especially in
You indicated that there was at least one instance you recall where you and Mr. Denton disagreed about what was publishable and what shouldn't be published. And we talked about the Brian Williams email. Are there any other instances that you recall similar to that?
No, that I can recall, no.
And by similar to that, I mean instances where you and Mr. Denton disagreed about what was publishable and what shouldn't be published.
Nothing specifically.
Would you consider yourself and Mr. Denton to be personal friends? And that includes at the present time.
Yes.
So you were, at the beginning of 2013, still editor-in-chief of Gawker.com. Then you were an editorial consultant for Gawker.com. Any other jobs that you had during 2013?
I was editorial consultant for Spin Media. Then I was full-time editorial director for Spin Media.
You were an editorial consultant for what time period for Spin Media?
between April and several months after that.
Okay. So you believe you became the editorial director of Spin Media in fall of September of 2013?
Yes.
And how long were you the editorial director of Spin Media?
About 2 months.
And why did you leave that job?
I was laid off.
What did you do next?
I started to form my own company.
Okay. What company was that?
RG Free LLC.
Okay. And what is RG Free LLC?
It's a media publishing company.
And what does it publish?
There's a site called Radar.com.
Okay. And what's Radar.com?
Radar.com is a news and culture entertainment site.
So there was a time period of approximately 1 year when you were working on RG Free LLC, but it had not yet gone online.
Yes.
Okay. And what were you doing during that time period to get the company going?
Fundraising.
And what steps were you taking to fundraise?
Email people that I was supposed to and try to set up meetings.
And did you invest any personal funds in RG Free during the time period from approximately November of 2013 to November of 2014 when the site went online?
Just startup costs.
And approximately how much was that?
I can't recall.
Mr. Delario, taking a look at Exhibit 366 that's in front of you, it says that RG Free cap table dated February 2nd, 2015. Do you see that?
Yes.
Going through the entities and individuals who have the Series C preferred stock, the first one is Gawker Media LLC. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it reflects that Gawker Media LLC has 500,000 shares of the Series C preferred stock. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know how much Gawker Media LLC paid for their 500,000 shares of Series C preferred stock?
$500,000.
And who did you talk to at Gawker Media LLC about a potential investment in RG Free?
Nick Denton and Scott Kidder.
How was it determined how much Gawker Media LLC would invest in RG Free? By that I mean, did you ask Mr. Denton and Mr. Kidder for a specific amount of money? Did they volunteer to provide that to you in investment funds for RG Free? How did that work?
And I actually don't recall.
Okay. Do you know when these discussions with Mr. Kidder and Mr. Denton took place?
In the early stages, I want to say about December of 2013.
Does RG Free have a physical facility
No.
where the company operates?
No.
Okay. So does the company operate essentially out of your residence?
That's where I operate.
And is there an editor-in-chief of Gawker.com?
Currently?
Yes.
John Cook, yes.
What is the distinction between jobs, the jobs of editor-in-chief and managing editor of Gawker.com currently, as best you understand?
One person usually handles the bulk of the day-to-day work, and that would be the managing editor, and the editor-in-chief handles a lot more of the conceptual, long-term, overall flow of the site. And one has hiring and firing power, the other does not.
And who has hiring and firing power?
Editor-in-chief.
And was that structure the same structure that was in place when you were editor-in-chief of Gawker.com?
Best of my knowledge, yes.
Who was your managing editor?
Emma Carmichael.
That's throughout the period of November 2011 through January 2013?
Yes.
Are there any stories that you wrote yourself that you were particularly proud of?
Not that I recall.
Are there any stories that Gawker Media published during the period of time that you worked for any of its sites that you were particularly proud of?
Not that I recall.
Are there any stories that you wrote while you were employed by Gawker Media that you regret having written?
No.
Any stories published by Gawker Media during the period of time that you were referring to its entities that you regret seeing published?
On the other sites?
On any of the other sites over which you had responsibility?
No.
And you recall there being a change to compensate, bonus compensation being based upon unique visitors rather than page views during the time that you were editor of Deadspin?
Yes.
Okay. When you returned to Gawker.com in 2011, was bonus compensation based upon page views or upon unique visitors at that time?
Unique visitors.
Okay. And it remained based upon unique visitors subsequently throughout your tenure?
Yes.
And when that change occurred, did the other basics of the formula remain the same, such that there was a unique visitor target and the bonus compensation was then based upon a percentage increase over that target?
Yes.
All right, let me ask you to take a look at page 1124C. You'll see that number at the bottom right-hand corner. It's the last page of the document. It's a page that's headed Appendix B, Site Lead Bonus Policy. See that? Is that the policy that was in effect at the time that you served, throughout the time you served as editor of Deadspin?
No.
Okay, how did it change?
It changed several times, I believe.
Can you tell me how?
Just the shift in targets and the compensation was based off of something called unique visitors instead of page views, but I don't remember the exact date of when that change happened.
Recall that there is at one point in time, a clipboard, as it were, that indicated number of page views that was prominently displayed in Gawker's offices.
I believe it's still there.
Okay. And do you know why that's there?
I believe it's to see how a story is being responded to minute by minute, the audience.
Does it have any relationship to Gawker's business model?
I guess I'm more unclear on terms of just like the business model. If you're saying that more readers, does that equal a better business model than one that doesn't have readers? Because I mean, that's pretty standard operating procedure for most publications.
And does it result in more revenue?
That I can't recall. And that I do not know.
Is, in your view, 3,000 page views of a story a relatively large or a relatively small number based upon Gawker's reader base?
That's a small.
What would a large number be?
I can't even estimate at this point. I mean, at the time when I was at Gawker.com, I believe a successful story was anywhere between 100,000 page views would be something that may have done better than expected.
If you were to try to translate that into unique visitors, what would a small number of unique visitors be? And what would a successful story be?
That's story by story basis, but I mean, I would say a successful story, in my view, would be anything 20,000 unique visitors. Seemed like a good, strong number at the time when I was there.
Do you recall seeing Exhibit 4 before today?
And in this form,
Take a look, if you would, at the back of the first page of the story.
Okay.
And referring you now to the second full paragraph, the last three sentences read as follows: his tactics, meaning your tactics in Editorial.
Second paragraph?
The second full paragraph of the story. Now it's the third.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, fourth sentence, I'm sorry. His tactics, reporting, rumors, paying for news, and making Deadspin's money on stories that are really about sex, not sports, are questionable. His success is not. When he became editor of the site in July 2008, it had 700,000 readers per month. Today it has 2.3 million. You see that?
Yes.
Is there anything in those sentences that you believe to be inaccurate?
No.
Do you believe that the increase in Deadspin readership was due to the salacious content of the website?
I believe some of the breaking news that we had were involving some salacious content, but that was breaking news. Not necessarily all of it was sex-related, but some of it was. Good majority of it was.
To be colloquial about it, in your view, does sex sell?
I'm sure.
Okay. And sex brings traffic to websites, correct?
I would assume so.
During the time that you were working for Gawker.com, you recall doing a story about Brett Favre?
No.
You know who Brett Favre is?
I do.
Who is he?
He's an NFL quarterback.
You know what team he plays for?
He's retired.
You know what team he played for before he retired?
He played for the Green Bay Packers, New York Jets, and the Minnesota Vikings.
Let me show you a document from the last reporter remark. This is Exhibit 2. I see you take a look at the story and see if you recall. So my reference to you is to everything above the box on the second page. Seeing that story before today?
Yes.
You write it?
Yes.
Is there a reason you didn't recall it when I asked you about whether you recall writing about Brett Favre?
You asked about Gawker.com. This is written for Deadspin.com.
Ah, okay. All right. So let's be clear then. I will endeavor to make clear when I'm speaking about Gawker.com as the Gawker.com website. When I use the term Gawker generically, can we have an understanding that
That's Gawker Media.
Gawker Media, which would include the Deadspin website?
Sure.
Okay. So this was a story that you wrote when you were working for Deadspin, the site, the sports site of Gawker Media, correct?
Yes.
Let's turn to the story itself. Did Gawker pay for the photos that were available on this site?
Yes.
And how much did you pay?
Approximately $10,000 from the photo. I believe it's around $12,000 total, including travel.
Including travel?
Yes.
To obtain the photos?
For the third party to bring the photos to cause.
Okay. And when you say photos, you include, are you referring to the video or to just the penis photos?
I'm referring to the penis photos and the voicemail messages that are contained as parts of the video. The video was edited for narrative purposes.
Did Gawker ever make any determination, and here I'm talking about Gawker generically, including the incident site, but did Gawker make any determination as to whether it was invading as far as privacy by posting what it posted?
Not that I recall.
Do you see any distinction between the FAR posting and the Hulk Hogan sex video posting?
In terms of subject matter?
In any way that you regard as material?
Subject matter.
What and subject matter being? What's the distinction?
One is a professional wrestler and one is a football player.
So, do you recall that during the period of time that you were editor-in-chief at Gawker.com, there was a story that was published about Kate Middleton's breasts?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you to take a look at document 1 mark, and this is Exhibit 3. Ask you to take a look at Exhibit 3 and ask you whether that's the story you recall having published.
Yes.
Did Gawker pay for these photos?
No.
How did it procure?
That I don't recall exactly. I was actually in Budapest at the time this was published, and the author of this post, I don't remember exactly how he procured them.
When you were, why were you in Budapest?
That was where our work outing was that year.
I'm sorry, your work outing?
Gawker Media had taken its site needs to Budapest.
Okay. Is that sort of a retreat that is done on an annual basis? Or?
I don't think it's done annually, but it was during that year.
Okay. Who was involved in the procuring of these photos then, on behalf of Gawker.com?
I believe actually the author of this post.
Okay. Was he a staff writer at the time?
Yes.
Is he still?
Yes. I believe his title's changed though.
What's his title now?
I believe it's managing editor.
Of Gawker Media.
No, Gawker.com.
Did Gawker make any determination as to whether, in publishing this story, Gawker.com was invading Kate Middleton's privacy?
There was, to the best of my understanding, that no, there was no invasion of privacy.
And did you take any steps personally to determine whether you believed an invasion of privacy of Ms. Middleton arose from Exhibit 3, I'm sorry?
No.
Do you believe that there's any distinction between the circumstances that gave rise to the photos of Ms. Middleton and the publication of the sex tape of Hulk Hogan?
Just the difference in story.
Difference in personality?
Story itself.
Do you think there's a difference between voluntarily appearing nude in a place that's visible to the public and being surreptitiously recorded?
Personally?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, but in terms of Story context? No.
What do you mean by story context?
I'm saying she's a public figure and these photos were released elsewhere and became a news story in their own right. And however, Max procured these photos, which I don't believe he went to anything, outside of just like the internet to get them. No.
Let me ask you to look at the top of page 1 of this exhibit. Next to a photo, presumably of Max Reed, I assume, at the very top of the page.
Yes.
There's the words NSFW, which also appears in capital letters in the third line of the title. What does NSFW stand for?
Not safe for work.
And what would happen physically if a reader of this story were to click on the word NSFW that appears next to Max Reed's name?
The one at the top here?
Yes.
At the time, that was a tag line. And if you click on NSFW, that will bring you to other stories with a similar tag in it.
And the tag being
Not safe for work.
And what does not safe for work mean to you?
That it's the indication to the reader that material that is involved in this particular story would probably be something, or maybe something that they would not feel comfortable reading at work based on their employer.
Is the implication then that employers might be concerned if their employees were looking at nude photographs?
That would be my understanding. Yes.
When does the NSFW tagline get employed and who makes that determination?
It's a story by story basis. But it's usually indicates anything where there is nudity involved.
Any form of nudity?
Yes.
And does that include nudity where there is pixelation or covering up of genitals or breast areas?
Sometimes.
So it's not just full frontal, no nudity, for instance, that would be covered?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the consistency throughout. I mean, it is usually employed with stories that have some form of nudity involved.
And who makes the determination about whether to tag it NSFW? Is it the author or the editor?
Sometimes it's a combination of both.
When did you first hear about the Hulk Hogan sex video?
Believe it was when it was this story on TMZ.
And when did that story appear?
I don't know.
Did the story indicate that there was a sex video, or do you recall substance of the story on TMZ?
Yeah, I believe it was discussing about the existence of a sex video.
What did you do when you first heard about the existence of such a video?
At the time that I heard about it, I don't remember.
Did you take any affirmative steps to try and get a copy of it?
No.
You did not?
No.
Why not?
It was just not of like immediate interest to me at the time.
There obviously came a point in time when it didn't become of immediate interest to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
What caused your mindset to change in that regard?
I was emailed a from a source that said that there was a client of his that was interested in mailing me something, and he asked for my P.O. box, and then we had a subsequent follow-up phone call, as to which he hinted that the contents of that package that he wanted to mail to me had something to do with the Hulk Hogan sex tape that had been talked about on TMZ and other sites.
What happened after that?
I don't recall the exact details, but there's a follow-up, and I had given him my address, or the Gawker media address at work, and depending on the time frame, and I don't remember the exact timing of it, but I was going on vacation, and I believe the package arrived while I was on vacation, and I had asked the managing editor to view the contents of that package.
And managing editor being?
Emma Connor.
And did she do so?
Yes.
And did she report back?
Yes, via text message.
What did she say?
I don't remember the exact phrasing of it, but
What is the substance?
I believe she said thank you.
Thank you. To you?
Yes.
For what?
For her next few minutes of viewing the sex tape.
Did she view the sex tape while you were out of the office on vacation?
Yes.
And then did she report back to you about what the tape contained?
Briefly, but it was the general gist of it. I think that's what she reported back, was the general gist of it. I don't know how long she watched the tape or the disc, so I guess that's what it was at that point.
It was a DVD?
Yes.
And where were you on vacation at the time?
I was on the West Coast. I was in both Portland, Montana, and Seattle.
And during what time frame was that?
It was the end of September. It was about last year at this time.
And do you recall when you returned to New York?
Not the exact date, but I would say early October.
And what did you do when you returned to New York with respect to this DVD that you now have in your possession?
I watched it, and watched it one or two times, and then decided whether or not we were going to publish some of the contents of it, and was discussing how we could possibly share some of the footage on Gawker.com.
Who at Gawker did Tony Burton initially contact?
That was me.
And how did he do that?
Via email?
So what did he say in this email to you, as best you recall?
That he had a client who had something that he wanted to send to me, and that he was requesting a P.O. box, or asked if I had a P.O. box.
Do you know why he was asking about a P.O. box as opposed to the Gawker's offices?
No.
And did you respond to him?
I did.
And what did you say?
I believe I asked what it was about, or could you give me any idea what was being sent?
And what was the response from Mr. Burton?
I believe that we had a phone conversation after that.
And what was discussed during that phone conversation?
It was discussed about whether or not I was familiar with the Hulk Hogan sex tape story.
And what did you say?
I said I remember vaguely about it, but nothing too specific.
Did Mr. Burton or anyone else say why Gawker was being contacted?
I believe initially he had said something along the lines that whoever's client was a fan of mine. And that's it.
Did he ask for money in exchange for providing this information or material?
No, he did not.
Does Gawker have any policies, written or unwritten, with respect to the payment of the source?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you make any attempt when you were contacted by Mr. Burton to find out what the motives of the source might be?
May have had that conversation pretty generally, but not to my knowledge specifically about that.
Well, what do you recall generally about the conversation, the phone conversation you had?
I asked him who was sending it, who his client was, but Mr. Burton claimed that he didn't know either.
Okay. And he never told you that at any point who the actual source of the tape was?
No, he didn't.
You made the determination that you wanted to publish at least some portion of it?
Yes.
Then what did you do?
Then I turned the tape and/or disc over to our video editor and selected various spots of the tape that I considered both newsworthy in the context of our story, and had her whittle it down to whatever the time frame was, but I believe it was close to 2 minutes of footage.
And then what?
Then there was probably a back and forth about the footage, and then I was going to write a commentary about both the Hogan tape and celebrity sex tapes in general, and using the Hogan tape as kind of the catalyst for that commentary.
You were aware prior to the posting of your story on October 4 of 2012 that still photos from the sex tape had previously been published on other websites, correct?
Yes, but I assumed at the time were of that tape, yes.
So, there was not a question then, as of October 2012, that a sex tape existed, correct?
Correct.
And so, the existence of the tape then was not news as of that date.
Correct.
You understood when you watched the video that it was recorded from a hidden camera, correct?
Yes.
And you never saw any footage where Hulk Hogan acknowledged that the camera was there or that the session was being taped, correct?
Were he directly stated that fact? No, we didn't.
And you've never seen any evidence that he knew at the time that the encounter was being taped?
At the time it was being taped, no, but I did know that after I received the tape that he knew of its existence and where he was staying at the time when it was taped.
Okay. Have you ever seen any evidence that Hulk Hogan knew at the time of the encounter that that encounter was being videotaped?
No.
If you had known for a fact, prior to the publication of your story, that Hulk Hogan was taped without his knowledge and would never have authorized it, you would have still published the tape, correct?
If I had direct knowledge from Hulk Hogan that he was taped without his consent.
If you knew for a fact that he was secretly taped and would not have authorized that, you would still have published the tape, would you not?
Yes.
So what did you want to be sure to include within the edited version that was ultimately published?
Some of the innocuous back and forth between Hulk and the woman in the tape that was supposed to be Heather Clem, his best friend's wife at the time, and some of the substance of that conversation and showing how not sexy it was.
Anything else other than innocuous back and forth that you wanted your readers to see?
Yeah, we wanted to verify the fact that they were actually having sex, so I believe we did small snippets of those two having intercourse.
Anything else you wanted to be sure your readers saw?
That's it.
You wanted to be sure your readers saw I'm sorry, rephrase that. Did you want to be sure that your readers saw Hulk Hogan's penis?
Yes.
Why was that?
That's usually what happens when people have sex, is they're naked.
Did you think it important to show the size or other characteristics of Hulk Hogan's penis?
Well, when I did the article, I referred to the size of it, so I believe the small portion of his, the time that we actually showed him there, it was just to back that up.
Did you think showing the size of Hulk Hogan's penis was newsworthy?
In the case of this, I wouldn't call it exactly newsworthy. I would say it was more to add some color to my commentary.
Is the same true with respect to showing the actual sex act between Heather Clem and Hulk Hogan?
That, as I previously stated, was done to actually show that they were having sex in regard to the sex tape that had already been just talked about publicly at that point.
Right. So it was a matter of public record prior to your publication of this story that there was a sex tape and the two had been having sex, correct?
I believe that, Hulk Hogan had verified that there was a sex tape in existence and that was published on TMZ, who it was with. That I found out, later was discussed publicly, and that was just based on some of the rumors about whether or not it was Bubba the Love Sponge's wife, Heather Clem.
Right, but the fact of them having sex was a matter of public record. The fact that there was this sex tape and that he was having sex with someone was a matter of public record. It was not.
Yes, based on my understanding of public record and its news value,
But that fact was not newsworthy. That was already a known fact, correct?
Yeah, based on my understanding, the existence of the sex tape, was out there. The actual contents of that sex tape were not out there, and this was the best way of at least giving and showing some of that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm sort of getting at. I mean, what did you regard as being newsworthy about the sex tape that wasn't already known and that was shown by having the sex tape posted as opposed to simply your description of what was?
Right. That's really done by a story-by-story basis, but at the time, I was thinking that if we can show some of the sex that was taking place, it would give a little more insight into the stuff that was already in the public record, and also show some inconsistencies in what Hulk had stated publicly and what there was as visual evidence.
Well, do you think you get more readers by just writing a story about celebrity nudity or by showing the celebrity actually nudity?
I'm sure that the ones that show celebrity nudity are doing a lot better than ones who just write about it. If there were sites that just wrote about celebrity nudity, sure.
In editing, they take down from 3 minutes to 1 minute and 41 seconds. You could have edited out all of the explicit footage, could you not?
Yes.
Was any consideration ever given to running a story about the Hulk Hogan sex tape without using any of the video footage?
Without any of the video footage?
Correct.
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Just the first time writing about the story was when we received the tape. So the tape was actually part of the story.
Doesn't make the story exclusive for you, right?
Yes.
And nobody had aired the tape itself before your story, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
And so what you wanted to do is to run the NSFW footage. That was the whole point of the story, correct?
No, the whole point of this story was to A, prove its existence, and B, for me to commentate on what I witnessed on that tape.
Right. But you never considered running a story with just your commentary?
The story as it pertains to this tape now.
Okay. And if you had done that, the number of page views and unique visitors would have been far less than what it actually was, correct?
I can speculate, probably say yes.
Are you familiar with the use of pixelization or blurring?
Yes.
And was that ever considered by you with respect to the excerpts that you created?
I don't think so.
Why?
Mainly because I don't necessarily like to employ those things on certain occasions, and in this case it was already marked NSFW, and that usually indicates that there will be not safe for work material involved.
What I'm trying to understand, I guess, Mr. Delory, is why you say you showed only enough sexual activity to establish to readers that the video from which the excerpts were derived was a sex tape. That would have been clear if you had blurred genitals or faces of the individuals. You still would have seen them engaging in sexual conduct, correct?
Sure.
And Gawker certainly had the technological capability to publish a video containing pixelated or blurred images, correct?
Sure. I assume so.
Prior to posting your article on October the 4th, 2012, did anyone at Gawker communicate with Bubba the Love Sponge?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Prior to posting your article on October 4th, 2012, did anyone at Gawker communicate with Heather Clem?
Not to my knowledge.
Prior to posting your article on October 4, 2012, did anyone at Gawker communicate with Hulk Hogan?
Not to my knowledge.
Is there any reason why in the story you elected not to attempt to communicate with any of the three of those individuals?
Well, in this instance, I mean, the subject matter has already been talked about publicly by at least Hulk Hogan at that point, and it was my understanding that most of the stuff that was contained in this tape had been at least, previously hinted at or rumored to exist.
And why would that preclude you from reaching out to Bubba or Heather or Hulk Hogan?
I was already satisfied with the visual evidence, and most of the story was about my own personal commentary on it, and not necessarily just like the extent of the relationship with the parties involved.
Does Gawker have any written policies concerning confirmation of stories for other publishers?
Not to my knowledge.
By publishing the story that you did, we previously discussed as part of Exhibit 7, was this something that you were excited about publishing?
This particular story, the original story?
Yes.
I was very enthusiastic about writing about it, yes.
And why was that?
So I enjoyed watching the video.
Okay. And the reason you enjoyed it?
Because I found it very amusing.
Any other reason?
I thought it was newsworthy, and it was something that was worth discussing and putting up on the site.
Did you believe that publishing the video would generate traffic to the site?
I believe that it would be somewhat popular.
Did you give any consideration prior to October 4, 2012 as to whether publishing the Hulk Hogan sex tape would distress Hulk Hogan?
No.
You didn't care for that, did you?
No.
Objection?
No.
Had you known that Hulk Hogan would be emotionally distressed by this publication, you would have still published it, correct?
Sure, yes.
And so it's fair to say that whether he suffered emotional distress or not, that played no part in your decision about whether and what to publish.
Correct.
All right, let's go back to the story, if you would. Exhibit 7, again, page 819. Let me ask you this initially. The first two paragraphs of your story, Mr. Delorio, speak about the greater context, if I can put it that way, of sex tapes and the public's interest in sex tapes. Would you agree that that's a fair characterization?
Yes.
Okay. The balance of the story, all of the remaining paragraphs, as I read it, are simply a recapitulation of what you viewed on the videotape or on the DVD.
Objection. Yes.
The post that's the subject of this litigation, do you recall whether you wrote the title of that?
It's supposed to be right.
The post involving the initial connotation of the Hulk Hogan sex video.
Yes.
We talked earlier about NSFW and what that means. Can you tell me why, in light of that discussion, your headline for this story includes the words, not safe for work, but watch it anyway?
So why I used that headline?
Why you use that phraseology in that headline?
Because I was trying to editorialize a little bit in the headline. We do make our headlines a little more interesting, and I'm offering an opinion on that particular matter because I was so enthusiastic about this particular tape.
Were you encouraging people to watch the tape at work?
Sure.
Regardless of what their employers might think or say about it.
I was telling them it was my opinion that it was worth the risk.
This was so good that they really ought to.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. What made it so good? but that this was super NSFW.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
That this was not just boobs.
And Mr. Delory, if someone published a secretly recorded video of you having sex, would you be embarrassed?
Briefly.
Why would you be embarrassed? And why only briefly?
I don't know, it depends on what was shown on the sex tape, I guess.
What would cause you to be embarrassed?
In the hypothetical sex tape? I don't know, what if something went horribly wrong in such a sex tape?
Would you be distressed by the publication of a sex tape, even if everything went right?
No.
It wouldn't upset you in any way to have your sexual encounters appear on the internet?
I somewhat expect that to happen at some point.
And that would not be upsetting or distressing to you in any way?
Not probably as much as other people who would be in a similar situation.
Yeah, well, now let's go back to the Hulk situation. You're accusing him of hypocrisy, correct?
I wouldn't say that was an accusation that I actually threw out there, but I think based on knowledge after the fact, I would suggest that he could be accused of that.
Okay, so hypocrisy then was not an element of the story that you believe made it newsworthy. You were aware of the hypocrisy at the time.
I wouldn't say hypocrisy in regards to what he had or hadn't said publicly at that point. No, I was not aware of that.
Prior to publication of the excerpts of the video on Gawker.com, are you aware of any public statement by Hulk Hogan discussing the shape of his penis?
No.
Or the size of his penis?
No.
You aware of any public statements by Hulk Hogan prior to publication of your story about sounds he makes when he is climaxing?
No.
Are you aware of any public statements Hulk Hogan has ever made about the sexual positions that he engages in?
No.
Was the news hook here with respect to this story, the Hulk Hogan sex tape story, was the true news hook that Hogan was taped having sex with his best friend's wife?
I wouldn't say that was particularly the true news hook.
What was the news hook?
The news hook was essentially what I stated in the headline itself, which was my own personal commentary about the Hulk Hogan sex tape that was in existence and me watching it.
With respect to the story and its news value, does it matter what position Hulk Hogan and Heather Clem were having sex in?
In terms of its news value?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Does it matter what his penis looked like?
In terms of news value?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Would it have been any more or less of a story if he had been on top of her instead of her being on top of him?
Not to me.
And would it have been any more or less of a story if his penis had been other than what it appeared to be?
Not to me.
Is it your view that any celebrity sex tape is newsworthy?
No.
What sort of celebrity sex tapes would not be newsworthy?
I couldn't say specifically.
Well, can you imagine a situation where a celebrity sex tape would not be newsworthy?
If they were a child.
Under what age?
4.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the deposition testimony of Mr. Delario. We're now going to take a 10-minute break.